Welcome everybody back to Tapton 209. It's me, it's Drew Smith, and surprisingly, it's Mike Montijo. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. And I'm so proud of what you've done so far with this podcast. I've been proudly listening every week and happy to be on here for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for on such short notice coming in. We didn't want to get you guys an episode out on a Thursday because Wednesdays are already kind of late on in the week. And both of the Moodliar boys are having some difficulties getting on. And, something that you used to say all the time, Mikey, when I was there is like, we make do. And that's what we're doing here. We make do.
That was like
Uh,
my motto when you were part of the program,
ex-
Drew, is hey, you know, whatever happens, we make do, we put a broadcast out and try to do our best. So I love that you're
exactly.
following that. And hey, hopefully I can do my best here with you guys tonight.
Absolutely. And I cannot wait for this episode. It's going to be a pretty normal episode for us. Just kind of a lot of recaps, breakdowns of the next week. You'll have our John's Player of the Week, and our Games of the Week. And to throw this in a little bit, we're going to do a little bit of an interview on yourself, Mr. Montijo. Go ahead and take us away.
I'm Mike Montijo. Currently, I teach broadcast digital media at St. Mary's High School. It's actually my fifth year now teaching in the program. I've been at the school for 6 years, helping out with the broadcasting, but this is my fifth year officially as the leader of the program. And before that, I got my start in broadcasting at St. Mary's as a student. I played sports all the way up to my sophomore year, and then I decided I didn't really want to go with the varsity, tumble and everything that had to go with it. And Mr. Paul Sheet, who at the time at St. Mary's was the vice principal and the AP US history teacher, decided to start the broadcasting program at St. Mary's. And it was a wonderful opportunity experience. I remember he came into our JV, one of our practices near the end of the year, and he wanted to talk to some of the guys on the team, say, hey, I know some of you football players might not be advancing next year. And if you aren't, why not consider joining the broadcasting program? I need all the help we can get with some of the football things we're going to be covering. And I thought, hey, this is going to be a great experience. As you can see right behind me, I have a Giants flag. I love the Giants growing up. And hey, Kruk and Kripe, John Miller, Dave Fleming, those are the guys. And I knew that listening to them was always a great time. It was always fun. And even though baseball was the main product, hearing their voices was always the thing that added to the broadcast. And going beyond further than that, you have guys like Mike Breen and Clark Kellogg and the NBA 2K games you hear all the time.
Exactly
And
right.
getting to hear those voices and discovering that, wow, broadcasting is a class here at St. Mary's. I can take that. That's cool. Why not try it? And really, that's how I got my start, just because I thought it sounded cool. And I ended up trying it a few amateur games. I'm going to take a little sidebar here, Drew. Really got thrown into the fire. Paul Sheet, who was the starter of the program, his very first week at St. Mary's that year we started the program, he got into a car accident on the day of our 140th anniversary mass. He texted me
Wow.
this year because it was 10 years since then, 150th year for St. Mary's this year. And he told me, oh, yeah, that was 10 years ago to the day I got in my car accident. That same day, we had an away game broadcast at Cardinal Newman. Shout out to Carl Winter, who is currently with Wisconsin. He's doing some of their sideline work. If you see him on Twitter, give him a follow. Great St. Mary's Ram, former 209 product, state winner in cross country and sprinting. Great guy. Him and the crew broadcasted that game at Cardinal Newman in Santa Rosa first completely by themselves. The next week, I had the opportunity to do that at Los
Wow.
Gatos. And hey, we got thrown into the fire, but we loved it. I mean, doing the broadcasting was so fun. And I love that you're still continuing it here, even with the podcasting. So that's how I got my start with the broadcasting. I know there's a few other things you wanted to know about, but um, I was an amateur broadcaster for about 4 years out of high school. I did work at San Jose State as a part of their radio, television, and film program. Shout out to KSJS, RTVF 121 and 21. Um, those classes helped shape me into the broadcaster I am today. And I had the great opportunity to coming back here to Stockton and working for Michael January at the University of Pacific, Go Tigers, and doing a lot of broadcasts on ESPN Plus for them for their baseball program, their soccer program, as well as softball, and still to this day working for them. Now, there's a few other questions here, Drew, you wanted to ask about, but you know, these favorite moments broadcasting, man, these are so so tough to bring up because if I asked you this question, I feel like do you think you could name moment broadcasting?
I could. I have one in my head that we actually will be talking about later on in this
Okay,
episode.
so here,
It
let's
is,
save
it
that for
will get
that.
brought up. It will get brought up. Yeah,
Okay,
later on for sure.
let's save that then. I'll talk about mine then right now. Okay, favorite moment broadcasting. Okay, there's two off the top of my head. I'll give one for St. Mary's since I work for St. Mary's. Shout out
Hmm.
SM Rams TV. Gotta love them. Um, 2.5 years ago, our girls basketball team was playing in the NorCal title game. It was 2022, 2023. Unfortunately, we lost that game to Oakland Tech. However, for anyone in attendance of that game and anyone who watched that game, you'll know that that was the game that Jordan Lee absolutely took over on the St.
Hmm.
Mary's home floor. I don't have the stats in front of me, but off the top of my head, I believe she dropped 50 points. It
Yeah.
was in a losing effort, but she had 50 of the Rams' 71 points in that game. In the fourth quarter, I think she had all the points. It was like a LeBron level performance. And, seeing athletes like that at the top of their level on fire is just such a blessing. And for St. Mary's, that's probably number one. And I'm going to give you another basketball one. Shout out Big Red. I can't remember his name. I just remember everyone called him Big Red. Granada basketball 2 years ago. Granada basketball is facing St. Ignatius at home in the yes, it was the NorCal's D1 playoffs. Granada, I think it's the second round, is down by one, or it might be tied. It was a tie game with 3 seconds left. And their big man, Big Red, whole game, I think he had a double double at that point, was going off. They give it to him on a short roll from the high key underneath the basket. He misses the first layup. Bully ball jumps backwards from right underneath the basket, gets his own board, put back, buzzer beater for the win. Granada's
Wow.
whole fan base stormed the court. The State Nations guys were, walking off, surrender
Uh-huh.
Cobra. It was an
Yeah.
awesome moment. But I remember shout out Big Red. He was a man in that moment. Just when he jumped back, it was like the heavens cleared, like the parting of the Red Sea. He had to
Yeah.
give that man that space. He was getting that board. So
Yeah.
for
I
moments,
do.
that's that one.
Yeah, I do actually remember that Oakland Tech game. For some reason, I can't remember if I was in the student section or if I was actually on air. I literally can't remember. But I really do remember Jordan Lee just absolutely taking over. Like every time they got a board or an inbound, it went to her and it was just ISO ball.
I mean, hey, when you have a talent like Jordan Lee or
Yeah,
some of the talents that the St. Mary's Rams have had the past couple of years, I mean, it's just a blessing as a broadcaster to commentate them. I mean, you know this yourself from the moments you got to experience. I think
absolutely.
I have a feeling I know based
I
on
think
what
you
this
would
episode
know
is what
exactly.
moment you're going to say. So I'm gonna wait on that. Now,
We'll
you also
wait.
asked what my favorite game I ever called was.
Hmm.
Now, those were the favorite moments. Favorite game overall, easily. Last year's Division 1 volleyball championship between the St. Mary's Rams and the Rockland Thunder, two of the best squads in volleyball in the area all of last season. Rockland, hey, they were a perfect volleyball team. They spread the ball around perfectly to the middle, to the outside, to the opposite, whether it was the pins or the middle of the net. They could score anywhere. Their defense was great, just picked up so many balls. And then the other end, you have the mighty defense of the St. Mary's Rams and McKenna McIntosh, who, hey, I told you before we recorded this, I've had a couple talks with other broadcasters. Shout out to Matthew Bissett of ABC Jam Productions. He himself told me after the championship game that McKenna McIntosh was the best athlete he has ever commentated for. And he
Wow.
said it was either her or Michael Porter Jr. back when he was in Washington, because
Hmm.
he did some broadcasts then. And those were the two he said off tops that were the best athletes. McKenna McIntosh in that game dropped 38 kills, which was a St. Mary's record. I don't know if anyone will ever break that. I mean, it was a 5-set match. She carried the Rams offensively, and the defense did their part. It was incredible. Rockland wouldn't go quietly. Every time the Rams got on a little run, they responded. I don't think any gap was ever more than 4 or 5. So when you have two top teams like that, I mean, it was literally the 1 and 2 seeds. when you have the two top seeds like that duking it out, you can never be unhappy with doing those types of games. That's for sure. And luckily, I'm already penciled in to do the D1 volleyball championship again this year, so
That's
can't wait for that.
amazing. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. So that was a little bit about Mr. Mikey Montijo.
Yeah, enough
And
about
with
me. Let's
that,
move on.
yeah, with that, we're gonna get into our regularly scheduled. We're gonna be looking at last week, which was week 4. We're gonna go ahead and start out with the VOL. Yes, normally Alvin takes care of the VOL. Me and Mikey are just gonna kind of go back and forth on this one. Maybe talk it out through a little bit more. We'll kind of figure it out. And we're gonna start off with Sierra losing the road, excuse me, to East Union. And East Union has been an absolute killer this year. Like kind of a surprising team. But they have not scored, I believe, under 50 points this year, and the defense is still holding teams to 2 scores.
Well, it's just an incredible start offensively, coming into the season or going into the game, 4-0 and now 5-0 and happily to be 1-0 in the VOL standings
Hmm.
already to start off. And hey, it's what you expect when you see a VOL game. A ton of rushing. Darian East with 32 carries, 241 yards, and a TD. I mean, hey, when you have a big power back you can feed it to,
Hmm.
give them the carries. And they fed their bell cow. And even though Sierra couldn't get much, that's what you're going to see. You on the other side, same thing. You got 8 for 13, 145 yards passing. The rest all comes on the ground. And when EU is putting up 50 points a game like this, with their passing stats only being 8 for 13, you just know that power rushing attack is just going to be running it right down your throat.
Yeah, you might be asking yourself like they put up 70 points basically just through the ground. Like it's kind of ridiculous. Like yeah, Kirk Simone was like you said 145, 8 for 13 and 3 touchdowns, right? That's through the air, but 145 yards, that's really not that much for 70 points.
Yeah, definitely not. And like I said, East on the other side for Sierra, 32 carries, 241 yards. Some
Hmm.
people would say, oh, you look at those stats, they got the win, but only 14 points to their name. But East Union, they have a very strong team this year, and I know they're looking to do some damage in the VOL. But hey, there's some other very tough teams in the VOL we're going to get to, including this next one, Oakdale and Mountain House, 48 to
Yeah.
0. Oakdale taking that victory, and you guys, I believe, I'm a loyal listener. You recognized Oakdale running back Wes Buford just a few weeks ago, and
We did.
he had himself another monster game, didn't he, Drew?
Yeah, just like he always does. But we talked about, I believe in last week's episode as well, we talked about Chase Lopez. For Burford, it was 8 carries, 145 and a touchdown. And Chase Lopez, kind of like this two-headed dragon and really a three-headed dragon with Richard Flores. Chase Lopez was 7 carries, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Richard Flores, 6 carries, 124 and 2 touchdowns as well. Like everybody's getting the ball.
Yeah, and everyone's averaging over 10 yards a carry. That's just insane stats right there. The worst rusher of those 4 we have on our stats is literally 10 yards a carry, 9 carries,
Yeah,
99 yards. And when that's your worst rusher, you're going to have one of the best rushing attacks in
yeah,
all of not just the area, but all of Northern California. And hey, Mountain
absolutely.
House came in, might have just gotten punched in the face and couldn't really roll with it. But when you have a team like Oakdale rolling like this, it's just going to be so tough to stop their rushing attack.
Yeah, when you're getting wins without throwing the ball once, like we talked about that earlier on in the year when we had the interview with Wes, like against Lincoln when it was pure domination, they did not throw a ball. And that is just ridiculous. Like you can sell out for the run and the O-line is still going to beat you.
That's good old fashioned power football. I 3 years ago did a game. I asked you to do this game with me. You said you couldn't, so we'll talk about that later. But no, 3 years ago I did a state championship game. It was at the D5 level. Houston, I can't remember who they played. Houston was in it. It was a rain game, completely mud bowl, just pouring the whole time. And during the game, Houston loved it. They had a power rushing attack, even though they had Robert McDaniel, a current San Jose State quarterback commit. Go Spartans. Robert McDaniel back there at QB. And hey, when they wanted him to throw it, he could sling it, as evidenced by him going to San Jose State. He was actually committed to UCLA for a little bit, so even bigger schools. But then, of course, when Nico
Hmm.
Iamaleava decided
Yep.
to transfer back
Transfer
over there,
over.
he said, you know what, I'll go to San Jose State and take my chances there. But during that game, complete mud bowl. And Houston was so happy to just run in the ball up the middle for 3 yards carry at a time because that was their power of football. No matter what, if they're getting this many yards of carry, 3.5, 3, they're going to
Hmm.
hand it off for 4 straight downs because that's 12 yards right there if you get it.
Yeah, it's
And
really all you need.
when you have teams like Oakdale averaging 10 plus, why throw the ball? You don't
No,
need to.
seriously, yeah, there's literally no need to throw the ball like once. So, yeah, we're gonna move into this Patterson Central Catholic game now. Patterson does lose on the road, 18 to 35. On the Patterson side, it was kind of Caden Lozano didn't really do much through the air, but really dominated on the ground as a quarterback. He was five for 12, only 37 yards and an interception through the air. But on the ground, it was 5 carries, 121 yards, as well as a touchdown, and kind of splitting the. I'm assuming it was a lot of read options for them because Dason Pettis was 19 carries, 133 yards with a touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at Patterson, it's always going to be tough going to Modesto at Central Catholic's house and beating them. And hey, they did a heck of a job putting up 18 points on that effort. You said it. Dason Pettis, 19 carries, 130 yards, a TD, and 5 carries, 121 yards, and a TD for Lozano. On the other end, though, Central Catholic, that's just protecting their house, getting their second win of the year. And Ken McHenry, only 10 balls thrown, but 5 completions, 96 yards. So getting multiple medium passes, probably a long ball in there too. But still, just the power rushing attack for the Raiders, taking it home for them as usual.
Yeah, they're splitting downs between two guys with Zamir Nelson and Carter Meeks. Zamir Nelson had 12 carries, 90 yards with a touchdown, and Meeks was 10 carries, 65 with a touchdown, as well as a touchdown through the air, and on the defensive side, getting an interception. And a guy that we talked about within the last couple of weeks, I know we talked about him last week, maybe the week before that, but Chase Perino. This guy is still doing it. With only 5 catches or 5 completed balls for Caden McHenry, 4 of them went to Chase Perino. He was 4 for 77 and 2 touchdowns. Like he's continuing to do it with how run heavy this CC team is as well.
And personally, I feel like that's something I've come to expect out of a single or one or two receivers out of Central Catholic all the time. Um, you might remember the name off the top of your head, Drew, of the receiver during your junior and senior year.
Yes, I know. I can't.
Because I know he was the favorite target of TP. TP Wentworth would, I mean, he hit him like twice against St. Mary's. I'm looking it up right now if you can't
I'm
find it.
yeah. I'm also doing a little bit of on the fly research.
Well, I'll say
Um,
this. You know, every year Central Catholic usually has at least one or two targets they can dump it off to, and it's no different this year. Trace Perino has been that guy, and you said it. This week he had another great day, 4 receptions, 77 yards, 2 TDs, and it's just spectacular to see a receiver at Central Catholic keep putting up those numbers. They
yeah,
always want to have a guy like that in their program.
they always have one as far as I can remember. And when I was there, it was Trace Hernandez.
Trace Hernandez.
Yep,
Dang
he
it.
played three sport athlete with baseball, soccer, and football. Like I remember seeing this kid when we went my JV year of football when we went to Central Catholic. Just he took like 3 deep balls, just taking the top off of the St. Mary's defense. Like it was ridiculous. Yeah, they always have a receiver there that is going to kill you.
And hey, when you have a program like that, it's just so exciting to see.
Mm-hmm.
But, we should move on to the next one, I assume, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And the next one is going to be Bantica and Lincoln. We'll talk about the Lincoln side of this one a little bit later when we cover TCal. But on Manteca did win this one at home, 51-14. Couldn't find any stats on the Manteca side. But honestly, this doesn't really surprise me. Um, Manteca's just so run heavy. I'm assuming it was a lot of Nico Juarez in this game because Lincoln really does struggle on the ground. We saw that earlier when they faced Oakdale and West. West had an absolutely amazing game.
Well, I'll say this too. Just looking from the stat standpoint, 2 interceptions for the defense for Manteca. They put themselves in good
Hmm.
positions on the defensive end multiple times. And Lincoln, young team, very young program, still trying to find their footing this year. I mean, really their footing for the past few seasons. But when you have a young program like this, really some mistakes like that can happen. And these mistakes, they build up and they build up. And you find yourself in a hole in the first half. And even though you have a very strong offense, these mistakes put you on the back foot. And against a team like Manteca, who can control the pace of play with their power rushing attack, I mean, Nico Juarez is the main guy, but going beyond that, they have plenty of people they trust that they can give the ball to. And when you put yourself in a hole like that for the Trojans, it's just so tough to climb back against a power program like Manteca.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been nice to see. We've seen that for Lincoln especially, it's been a really up and down roller coaster for them. And it's nice to see Coach Lateef Grimm kind of like you see these strides, right, where like everything's clicking on both sides of the ball and you're like, wow, this team is like one of the better teams in the 209. And then you see a game like this against a tougher team, right? And it just doesn't feel like they can hold their own. But like you said, they're young. I can't wait for next year and even the year after that to see like how much this team can grow and continue to see a playbook progress with Coach Grimm.
Well, I'll say this too. I mean, Lincoln as a whole, it's tough to see because they're one of the strong programs in the 209 in a lot of sports. Their basketball program is the elite one in the
Hmm.
209, other than Modesto Christian. So, you know, you'd like to see them build up a little bit stronger program in football. I love what Coach Grimm's doing out there, and it's nice to see. I'd like to see him hold the program for a couple of years because that's one thing I feel like a coach there needs to develop is time. And if
Hmm.
you get time, build experience with your staff, with your players, a young player like Julian Perez, you don't
Exactly.
know what can happen in the future.
Yeah, and I just like from the 2 summers that I was able to work out with him, like you build so much trust with him in that first year because he is just such a personable guy, but he's gonna bring out everything that he can out of you. So with that, that was kind of all of our VOL games. And we're gonna do something a little bit new, just kind of spice it up. I'm just gonna talk about our VOL standings. With this, it's gonna be a little bit different from Max Preps until at the very end it'll all line up. But ours is gonna take into account league record as first, then our overall record, and then kind of a point differential, points, how many you've scored, kind of a little bit of a mix of both. So for us, East Union will be number one so far. They're 5-0 with an 1-0 record in league. Oakdale also 1-0 in league, like we just talked about. They're 4-1. And Central Catholic getting their foot in the right direction after 3 straight losses for the year. They're now 2-3, 1-0 in the conference. In the latter half, Sierra, Patterson, and Mountain House all lost. It'll go in that order with Sierra at 2-3, Patterson and Mountain House both at 1-4. And Manteca, just because they didn't have a game, they're going to be at the bottom of the VOL. That's just kind of normal standing. They are 4-0.
Yeah, Manteca won't be down there for too long, that's for sure.
Oh.
But it makes sense. And I, for one, can't wait to see East Union, Oakdale, Manteca duke it out. I know Central Catholic's going to be a big dog in there too towards the end of the
Mm-hmm.
season, but those three teams right now, 5-0, 4-1, 4-0. Hey, whoever comes out on top in those matchups is not just going to get boost in their playoff ranking, but a boost in their belief in their season. I mean, if you
Yeah.
can take down the other powers in your division like Manteca did last year, you go into the playoffs with so much confidence and so much belief in what you can do.
Yeah, because really looking at this VOL league as a whole, like they're definitely the strongest conference that we cover out of the three. They have the most competitive teams in our Power Five rankings. They have like 3 or 4 of the spots out of the five. Like they're a very competitive team league, and I cannot wait for the next couple of weeks to see how this shapes out.
Without a doubt. Well, let's move on to the SJAA, Drew.
Absolutely. Franklin going to lose at home 26-14, their second league loss in a row. Couldn't find any stats on both sides of the ball, but I kind of expected a little bit more out of Franklin.
Well, you know what? I'll say this. Tip of the hat to McNair, because what was one of the first games you covered this season, Drew?
It was that
Remind me.
Lincoln absolutely just they dropped 70 points on McNair's
Yeah,
head,
it
like
was what,
yeah,
like 70 to 6,
70 to
70
30.
to
Yeah, so, or 70 to 7, like something ridiculous. Yeah.
72 to 6. I have it right here.
Yep. Yep.
Now, I'll say this. End of the day, you might expect more from Franklin, but McNair, they went out and scheduled some tough teams in their preseason schedule. You got Lincoln in there. They got a forfeit against Burbank for 1 win. Then they lost a series and they fell to Tokay. You look at these teams and you got some D1 teams in there. You have teams that are known to be a little bit stronger than you. And, Series isn't the biggest school, but you're looking at teams that are, I would say, definitively probably stronger than your programs. And McNair, they got themselves a tough schedule. They went out and, hey, they face a team that they could be 50-50 with in Franklin, and they win by 2 scores, 26-14. I think that's just part of the program, a program win. The program built themselves up. They challenged themselves early on in the year, and this is how you get better. Even if you get smacked 72 to 6 all you can do is look forward to next week. And hey, good win to McNair this week. You beat Franklin and you move on into the SJAA with a nice win.
Yeah, like we're not counting out McNair as a whole. Like they placed second in the SJ2A last year. Like they were a good team. And so it's going to be nice to see. Hopefully they get their feet back underneath them with it. It looks like it started off strong with this Franklin win as they moved to 1-1 in league. After that, it's Bear Creek Western Ranch. Bear Creek gets the first win of the year, 49-12. Nothing there, but it is nice to see Bear Creek get in the win column.
Yeah, absolutely. Always nice to see that first number go up, and hopefully Bear Creek can build this up and take a few more wins to the SJA when they get to week 5.
Yeah. West Stag absolutely dominates West at home. Also no stats there. Kind of a quick SJ2A, but it's just kind of how it rolls. It was a 42-7 win for Stag. And this is where you like to shine. It's your TCal
Hey.
league. Kimball gets a win at home over Golden Valley, 41-19. That's a huge win in the right direction for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to see Kimball get a win there. Just protecting their house. Always going to be tough to go into another high school and take them at their home spot. Rams saw that 2 weeks ago against Oak Ridge,
Hmm.
but Kimball, hey, 41 points, a nice offensive night for them. Golden Valley still put up 19, but hey, you got to do what you got to do to get into the win column, and the Jaguars did all they had to. Now, I know next week we'll see them against St. Mary's, so we'll see how that goes. But hey, Kimball, hats off to you for a good win.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a good right step. And talking about a right step in the right direction. After 8 losses going back to last year, Lodi finally gets it done. 20-14 over Buhok Colony. Man, that's a tongue twister. But yes, they get in the win column.
Buhok Colony. I My JV year, we played Buhok Colony at Buhok Colony on their homecoming night, and I always remember that game because that was one of our 3 losses that year.
Oh,
And Coach Brusa, President Brusa now for St.
mm-hmm.
Mary's, was not happy with how that end result happened. And I do remember quite a few gassers being run after that game when we got back Monday for practice. But hey, Buhok Colony, taking on Lodi. Lodi going to get the victory there. But you said it. Nice win by Lodi. 8 straight losses going back to last season. And really, as a program and as a school, it's just a nice little breath of fresh air. Get yourself back in the win column, your fans at home, the parents, the students, all nice to see for that.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, especially for all of these TCal teams finally going into league, except for St. Mary's this week. I believe maybe it's one more week after that.
Yeah, one more week for the
One
TCAL
more week.
teams.
That's what it is. One more week for the TCal team. So it's going to be it's a nice breath of fresh air, like you said, getting back in the right direction. After that, Tracy goes on the road to Pleasant Valley and they lose 16-35. Couldn't find anything on the Tracy side, but do want to give a quick shout out to the senior running back Titus Andrews for 20 carries, 181 yards, and 3 touchdowns, beating this young Tracy team. I kind of wanted to see a little bit more out of them, especially like with the difficult team on the road, maybe show up a little bit more, but. Yeah, they're gonna have to get in the right direction next week.
Well, hey, senior running back Titus Andrus, he was probably told by his coaches, hey, you're getting the bell cow tonight. You've been our bell cow. Just
Hmm.
defend this house. It was a home game for Pleasant Valley, and Tracy got to make the trip down there. That's going to be a tough one. Titus Andrus averaging 9 yards a carry in that contest. That's just insane numbers. And if you can't stop that even a little bit, he's just going to run it down your throat. And Pleasant Valley did
Hmm.
that to effect in the game. 3 TDs for Andrews. They got 2 TDs in other ways, but still, Tracy putting up 16. Nice little effort to get a couple scores in, but still not the effort you want to see on the road from them. But one more week to tune up before we get into TCal play. And Tracy definitely is going to be one of the stronger teams in the TCal, I still believe.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I really cannot wait for league to start. It's one of my favorite times in any sport because that's where you really see, friends become enemies for from whistle to whistle. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So. Yeah, we talked about this game a little bit earlier. It's the Manteca Lincoln game. Lincoln loses. And like we said, Julian Perez, not his most efficient game that we've seen. But I believe going into this week, he was the number one passer in NorCal or California, like passing yards wise. He had the most passing yards according to Max Preps. It was kind of ridiculous to see. And someone that represents the 209. This week it was 15 for 36, 158, two touchdowns, but as well as two interceptions. Through the air, it was Rene Garcia the third for four catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown. And on the defensive side, I want to highlight two people. Fallon Barquette, seven tackles, three of them for loss with two sacks in there. And Kayshawn McColu with an interception.
Yeah, defense made a couple nice plays, but at the end of the day, they could not stop them Antigua rushing attack. And Perez, two interceptions, two mistakes right there. Going further, though, 21 incomplete passes. It was a very just 50-50 night for him. Very young player, though. I'm sure he's going to take this as just a learning experience, brush it off the shoulder. And hey, all he can do is just build it on for next week. And I'm sure that next week, Perez is going to have a great passing day. Two touchdowns still in the effort to go with the two interceptions. One, like you said, going to Garcia, four receptions, 41 yards, and a TD. So that real efficient attack that they've had at their strongest points of the season just wasn't there. And hey, when you have a young QB back there, you're going to have to expect to have those mistakes. He hasn't had too much experience on varsity other than this year. So, hey, let him back there, let it rip. If a mistake happens, it happens. All you got to do is just move on to the next play.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna move into this Edison Downey game, which Edison finally gets in the win column. We talked about it last week. Yes, they're facing very tough competition, right? Like you don't want to see three losses, but it's nice to see them in the right direction. The offense finally gets going, right behind Devin Rasmussen, who had a pretty decent day. 10 for 16, 218, five touchdowns, and also on the ground, he ran 12 times for 55 yards and a touchdown. Through the air, his leading receiver was Alonzo Ward III with four catches, 139 yards, as well as two touchdowns through the air. On the ground, he kind of was playing on both sides of the ball. Was Amarion McKenzie. Defensively, he had 13 tackles, and McKenzie was 13 for 82 and a touchdown on the ground. Darius McClendon, excuse me, with 12 tackles himself, and Malachi Manning, five tackles, two sacks.
Yeah, just Zoe Ward having himself a great night. Four receptions, 139 yards. I mean, what is that? 30 something, 34 yards
Yeah, pretty.
catch. That's
Hmm.
insane right there. Rasmussen having a great night as usual. Something to expect out of him when the offense is working. I talked to Coach Tony Gomez, one of the offensive coaches for Edison High School. He's actually my cousin. And throughout the season, he's been telling me a few different things. Like in their opening week, penalties was the main thing. They couldn't have any clean series. They wanted to say they had over 100 plus yards of penalties. And
Wow.
yeah, I'll say this. My cousin who was at the game described it in one phrase. And I hate to use this because I love the program, but we played like Grant did against Folsom in the beginning, where it was just, too many,
Hmm.
unsportsmanlikes, letting the emotions get the best of you. And from what he's told me, it was a couple games like that throughout the season. So
I see.
this week against Downey, the boys on the team really buttoned down. They bought in, and the whole system worked. There wasn't too many penalties. The ones that weren't too backbreaking, and Edison was able to get themselves an early lead and just keep the foot on the gas. Downey, on the other hand, they just wouldn't go quietly. Every time Edison scored, it was just, we're matching it. We're matching
Yep.
it. Edison would build a two-score lead. Downey would come back and make it one. Two score, one score, just back and forth the whole game. And Edison was able to knock it away with a touchdown towards the end to cement their lead. But still, great to see the Vikings get in the win column. And I know they're going to hopefully build that into this coming week as they take on another Fresno team, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. We'll get into that later for sure. But yes, for St. Mary's, they were obviously on the bye this week, so um, nothing really else to say for them. Hopefully the rest week really does help them out. And the SJA was pretty short, yes, and that's because of our game of the week. It was a thriller in Chavez's favor, 55 to 27. Tokay just couldn't keep the offense rolling, and even slow down Elijah Walker. And if we didn't give him John's Player of the Week last week, he would absolutely deserve it this week. He was 20 for 26, 408 yards with 6 touchdowns. Oh my goodness. This kid is a sophomore. Um, it was Eugene Yarborough, 10 carries, 52 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Lamonte Barlow, 3 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. And on the defensive side, it was Tino Taufua. Hopefully, I didn't botch that. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm just going to throw that out
Tau
there.
Patofua.
There we go. 10 tackles and a TFL. Nothing on the Tokay side, stats wise, but I mean, have yourself a day, Elijah Walker. You will be hearing about a teammate from his here in just a little bit. But with that, like, that's just an outstanding game. This was a game of the week that, like, a game that we had starred since Tokay kind of took off at the beginning of the year. Just looked so good. And so I was really excited for this one, and it definitely didn't disappoint.
Without a doubt. I mean, Walker, 20 completions, 408 yards, 20 yards of reception, basically. Walker, 6 incompletions, 6 touchdowns. So 6 of those completions were touchdown. It's like wipe those incompletions off. We don't care about
Hmm.
them. Walker just had a fantastic night, took it to the Tokay Tigers, and hey, the Tigers still put up 27. Not a bad offensive night,
Yeah.
but the
I,
defense on the other end, you just can't get a stop. I mean, hey, that's just power offense from the Chavez.
Yeah,
I
this is,
mean,
I mean, yes,
jeez.
this Chavez team is definitely a high powering offense. And 27 points for Tokay wins them a lot of games.
Yeah, without a doubt, especially in this area too.
Hmm.
They would look at that and say, "Hey, SJA, we might win a couple of games just with 27 alone." I mean,
Absolutely.
but
Yep.
what a night from Chavez.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about this. Are the SJ2A league standings with Chavez at a perfect 5-0 as well. They are 2-0 in league, followed very closely behind Stag, who's 4-1 and 2-0 in league as well. Those teams will face off in the last week of the year. So that's going to
Mm.
be exciting. Honestly, it's probably going to be a game of the week. If not like one of the 5 games of the week for that, because there's going to be a lot in that final week. McNair, Tokay, Bear Creek, and West all at 1-1. Um, Tokay is 3-2. That's followed by McNair at 2-3. Bear Creek 1-3, and West 1-4. Franklin and Weston Ranch both at 0-2. Franklin is 2-3 though. West and Ranch yet to find the win column. With that, we got uh, a word from John's. Today's episode is brought to you by John's Deli, the go-to spot for incredible Italian sandwiches and comfort food. We're talking fresh baked bread, premium meats and cheeses, and bold flavors that hit the spot every single time. Whether you're stopping by for a quick lunch, grabbing dinner for the family, or ordering a platter for game day, John's has you covered. Don't settle for ordinary. Evaluate your meal with John's Deli. Every bite is made with care. Swing by today and taste the difference. And with that, do you guys know what follows up our John's Reed? It's our player of the week, and he's coming from East Union, Braden Kamara. 10 carries, 145 yards, 4 touchdowns, as he leads the VOL in total touchdowns with 14.
I mean, 14 touchdowns total in that game, 14.5 yards a carry. Just an elite talent. And hey, East Union, they took it to Sierra in the game, and he absolutely deserves your guys' player of the week this week. Hats off to the young man on a great victory.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like leading this very run heavy VOL in touchdowns, like another 4 touchdowns to his name. He's been tearing it up. We've shouted him out the last like 3 weeks in a row. He's been insane.
Yeah, and when you have rushers in the VOL, like I mean Nico Ores, Burford, I mean even on Oakdale, I mean just that whole team of rushers, you could say, and then over here, Kamara, 14 touchdowns. Keep it going, young man. You still got another half of the season to go. Let's see how high that number can get.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, especially when these teams all line up and the defenses are like just keening in on the run. With that, we're going to move straight into our week 5 preview, starting back off with this VOL that we've been talking about so much. A 1-4 Mountain House is going to go and take on a 2-3 Sierra. Sierra at home for this one. It was a 50-12 win last year for Sierra.
Yeah, normally I lean the home teams for most of the Valley Oak League teams. I always think that at home for the Valley Oak League, unless you're playing a Central Catholic, of course, you generally have the advantage. And I mean, looking back to it, 50-12 win for Sierra last year. Mountain House still hasn't found their footing completely yet this season. 1-4, Sierra 2-3. I feel like Sierra, as long as they play their game, they should come out with a victory in this one.
Absolutely. A 1-4 Patterson is going to host a 5-0 East Union. EU did lose to Patterson twice last year. One in the regular season with a nail biter of 53-50, and then in the playoffs was a 38-22 victory for Patterson. I don't see Patterson kind of hanging on in this one. They looked decent last week against Central Catholic, but I think East Union is just too high powered right now. They're clicking on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, we'll see. I always like to give it to the team that's hotter, but at the end of the day, Patterson, they had themselves a good season last year. Now, that's talking about last year. Looking at this season, you already said it 1-4 on the year. Now, going back to last season at the same point, let's just do a little comparison. Overall, they finished 7-6. So, these early victories aren't really a main thing for them. I'll say, I don't think we should underestimate this Patterson squad, even though they're not having the best starts to their season. I'm going to zag here. I'm leaning towards Patterson in this one. Now,
Okay.
I don't think they're going to take it by a wide amount if they do, but I think this Patterson squad just is strong. And hey, their losses in the early season have been to pretty tough teams. You got Valley Christian in there, Merced, California, Central Catholic. We'll see what they do, but I'm going to go Patterson in this one, narrowly taking it in a nail biter. Let's see what Caden Lozano can do in here. I think he might have himself a great rushing game alongside Dason Pettis.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see. Absolutely. Before we move on anymore, I do wanted to say that we talked about Linden High School for the last couple of weeks. We didn't talk about them last week, and I just want to make sure that we get them in and that they are still being talked about. So real quick, 2 weeks ago it was Linden at Houston. They do lose that one 28-21. But last week it was a huge bounce back win, 55-0 at Millennium. Um, and for Linden, it was Jacob Ricketts, the senior. He was 7 for 7, 193 yards with 2 touchdowns. And very, not even like that run heavy for them as well. But Andrew Juarez, the senior as well, only 5 carries, 117 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He just kept it going. That's 23 and a half on the ground per carry. As well as another running back, Isaac Ruval Kaba, the junior, also 5 carries, 79 yards with a touchdown. Through the air, the number one receiver. Only 2 receivers did get a catch in this game. One of them was DeAndre Smith. He had 6 catches, 178 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They're rolling right now. I believe they are an even 2-2 on the year. Yep, and in second place in league, right behind Somerville, who's also 1-0, and they are 3-1 on the regular season.
Yeah, I'd like to see what Linden can do the rest of the year. That Somerville squad is, normally a good challenger. Somerville, I did their game against Patterson in the championship last year. I believe it was D5, D6 at St. Mary's. Patterson, I want to say got the victory. I'm trying to remember. I can't recall. But hey, that squad at Linden, they're always fun to see when they're doing
Hmm.
good. Shout out to Coach Alex Metchikoff. He was a former coach at Linden, now coach at St. Mary's, and he always has great things to say about their program. And shout out to their social media. They have a great social media team. And you know me, Drew, I love what social media work goes on in
Uh,
the 209 area. And we have some great
yep,
teams with some
exactly.
great
We
social
always
media in the area.
always are shouting out Stag and Edison in the social media department. They've done absolutely an amazing job so far. All right, we're going to continue. Our last team in the VOL is Oakdale. They're on a bye this week. They're going to get the nice breather, let Wes Burford catch his breath in that three-headed backfield.
Yeah, no handoffs today, boys. Just
No, go
just
ahead and sit back
warm
and
up this week.
relax. With that, the SJ2A. It's going to be Franklin Chavez of 2-3 Franklin going on the road to Chavez. It was a 38-7 win for Chavez last year. And they've won the last 4 out of the 5 matchups. I believe it was 2 years ago where it was a forfeit in Franklin's favor, excuse me. It's the only reason they are not 5 for 5.
Yeah, and I think in that game, Chavez they didn't have enough players to perform in the game, so that's why they couldn't. So, hey, Chavez has been dominating this matchups the last couple of years. They've been rolling this season 5-0, and I don't see any reason it's going to be different. Franklin, they're struggling still to start the year. They trying to find their footing. 2-3, they've gotten a couple of wins, but when you're going against Chavez, you have to be ready from the first snap. Otherwise, they're going to zoom away with a victory. And if Franklin's not ready for this one, it's going to be another left in the dust for Chavez here, like they won 38-7 last year. I think this one's easy call. Chavez definitely for the win.
Yeah, I mean, I can see Elijah Walker throwing for 500 yards. Like just
Mm-hmm.
like for what he did last week against a good Tokay team. I'm not saying Franklin's a bad team. I just don't think they are at the level of Tokay this year.
I would agree.
Speaking of Tokay, they're going to go on the road to a 1-3 Bear Creek. Tokay is 3-2, a 47-6 win for Tokay last year, and Bear Creek is 0-4 against Tokay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay. Looking at last week, you still had a very strong week. On the other end, though, defensively, hey, you let off 55 points. Part of that, though, is Elijah Walker. He's just a very talented passer, and when he hits his receivers in stride, they're going to zoom away. And this week, you're not facing that talent in Walker, so your defense is going to have a little bit more breathing room. Bear Creek a little bit more prone to mistakes. So if your
Mhm.
defense can, cause a few miscues, set your offense up, I think Tokay is going to have another strong 47, not 47, excuse me, big victory. Last year they won 47-6 in large part to their defense, and I think it's going to be the same this year. Bear Creek, though,
Yeah,
if you can find something early, keep it close. Who knows what can happen towards the end? Still, though, I lean Tokay in this one.
yeah, I also lean Tokay. I mean, yeah, football's football. You can see it like any team can win any day, and that's just kind of how sports are in general. Yeah, so if Tokay kind of keeps it close, or Bear Creek keeps it close, excuse me, they might have a chance, but yeah, I will lean Tokay. Next up, Stag 4-1 taking on the winless Weston Ranch. It was a close victory last year for Stag at 21-13. Um, and Weston Ranch has dropped the last 3 games. I don't really see this one going any different than going to Stag. They got the home field advantage against kind of a defeated Western Ranch so far.
Yeah, this one, we'll see how it ends up going, but you said it. Weston Ranch so far scoreless. I mean, I don't know, winless, excuse me, not scoreless. Stag, they're on a mission this year to prove to the rest of the SJAA that they deserve to be at the top. And again, Stag has always been a strong program. And Chavez, even though they're 5-0 this year, I know they're looking like the top dogs, but Stag, they want to flex their muscles still. And I think Stag's going to come out this week and get a strong win, just prove themselves. Hey, we're the top team in the SJAA. We're not going to let off the gas, even though Western Ranch is 0-4. This is just a prove it week. Let's show who we are. Let's show the whole of the Sac Joaquin section who we are, and that we can make some noise.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, McNair's looking to stay in the win column at home versus a 1-4 West. McNair coming in at 2-3. It was a 38-0 win last year for McNair. Again, I don't see that changing very much this year, especially being at home and riding off of a win for McNair.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I feel like that preseason schedule just helps towards the later of the year when they get into league and they aren't playing some of these teams that have a little bit more, history programs or who have stronger, coaching staffs because they're going to go in and McNair last year, you already got the 38-0 win. You probably won't have to change too much of the game plan. Just do what fits and, keep it rolling. West, on the other hand, hey, you got to win. You're in the SJAA. You got your 1-1 win there. Just try to keep it moving, see what you can do, and see what can happen. Now, these last couple matchups for West and McNair haven't been too pretty, but at the end of the day, McNair's only 2-3. They've shown that they make mistakes on offense, like against Lincoln. A lot of mistakes there offensively that Lincoln was able to take on. So West, if you hang in it, see if you can cause some miscues. We'll see what can happen. But McNair, yeah, I'm just gonna say it. McNair dominates this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, next we're gonna move into our final league in TCal. We said it a little bit earlier. This is gonna be their last week of essentially preseason, regular season until they move into league. Starting off with two 3-1 teams in Kimball going on the road to Annalee. Kimball absolutely blew them out last year, 72 to 14. I'd like to see them do the same thing again this year.
Yeah, Kimball, they're 3-1, looking to go into the TCal right before the break, hopefully 4-1, so they can have a strong season. Last year they had a good preseason, went into the TCal with a similar record, and I think they finished third. I want to say third or fourth. I can't remember exactly where they finished in the spot. I know them and Tracy were vying for that third spot towards the end of the year, and hey, I think it's going to look similar to this year. 72-14 win for them last year. It's a game that they can use to show their offense off and build some of their confidence before they get into a stronger TCal schedule. So I'm gonna give it to Kimball in this one, even though on the road, I believe in this matchup, it's gonna be tough going on the road, but still, Kimball, as long as you play your game, you should get the win in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Edison going back onto the road after a win last week. They're 1-3, taking on Amarillo, who is 1-4. Edison though is ranked 144th in California, with Amarillo at 605. Both of those are according to Max Preps. I couldn't find them that they played against each other in recent years, but I would love to see Edison stay in the win column and really look good before league.
Yeah, without a doubt. You see these teams play each other, and Armio in the greater Sacramento area, coming out of Fairfield, California, 1-4, and their losses have been to teams who, I mean, you would really expect them to lose to, I would say. Yuba City, Bishop O'Dowd, Rodriguez, Cardinal Newman, and they got blanked against Rodriguez and Cardinal Newman. In those matchups, I would say Edison, not quite comparable to those two, maybe to Rodriguez. So in this one, I definitely lean towards Edison. Just ranking wise, you obviously want to lean towards Edison, but I'll say this: last week, Edison against Downey, pretty good program. They kept it going offensively, even though the defense couldn't get too many stops. They did what they had to do and they got the win. And I feel like if Edison comes into this game just like they did this last week, keep it clean, not too many penalties, just let Devin Rasmussen sit back in the pocket, throw it up to Zoe Ward, you're going to get a win here and move to 2-3 before TCal play starts.
Absolutely. And a game that next, a game that we really wanted to put at our game of the week, but it just couldn't top what the other one is. It's going to be St. Mary's going on the road to the number 24 team in the nation, De La Salle, who's a perfect 4-0. Last year was a nail biter, 38 to 35 finish, and the St. Mary's loss. The last time they did win this battle was 2022, 2023. And that's what I kind of wanted to talk about earlier. When you asked me what my favorite game was and my favorite moment, it was that game for sure. Without a doubt. I felt like that was the best game that I've called. I was with my partner in crime, Mason Jemias, as well on the call of
You
that
actually
game.
weren't. You were not. You were with Nick Reloke on that game.
Oh my goodness, that is right.
I was just going to give him a shout out. And as soon as you said it, I was like,
Wow,
no.
that's right. Because I
Now,
mean, every other
I'll,
game was with Mason Jemias.
yes, you
Yes,
were.
but
Now,
I was with Nick.
there's a few things I remember about that game, I will say. So, Nick Reloke, his brother, Dylan Lozano,
That's right.
forced a fumble in that game. And Nick was
Mm-hmm.
super hyped when that happened on the broadcast. But,
Yes.
I don't know if that was your best game, Drew, but I remember you having a great call on that game. That whole game was exciting. I mean, what a win for St. What was it, 45-35?
Pretty, yeah, something like
It
that.
should have
Like
been
I think
45-28 too, because the last
mm-hmm.
touchdown came in what, like the last minute? They got
Last
like that
minute,
deep
yeah.
ball.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yeah, that game was so I think I stood for the entire fourth quarter because it was like it was history. Like that's what it was. That game was history. So hopefully St. Mary's can maybe do it again. Um, talking with
Yeah, I gotta have you and Nick on again for another St. Mary's De La Salle game and see what happens.
talking with Jeremy Krause. He's kind of hoping it's going to be the upset of the year. So it'd be nice to see.
Yeah, definitely going to
Um,
be an uphill battle for the Rams. I'll say it though, if they can come in with a healthy squad, and that's one of the big question marks about this week and the past 2 weeks with their bye is if they can be healthy, you know, they can definitely challenge this squad. Now, rankings wise, and I'll say it, player personnel wise, this leans to De La Salle heavily, very heavily. I mean, so many power players on this De La Salle squad, and I'll say it. Personally, the best football player I have ever single handedly covered during a game, I believe, is Justin Jefferson, who is currently at De La Salle. He's a senior. For those of you who watched the game between St. Mary's and De La Salle last year, he was the player who had the 99-yard kickoff return to kick the game off. And past few years, he's been a demon. He's terrorized the St. Mary's defense. Just trying to stop him is so difficult. And even though I'm biased towards St. Mary's, I think he's going to do it again. I mean, last week they struggled to stop the Oak Ridge rushing attack, and now you have the highly vaunted De La Salle rushing attack coming in, and Justin Jefferson is one of the monsters on the heads they have. I mean, so many different players back there. You have Jones Drew still over
mhm.
there, Justin Jefferson. I mean, just so many power players on this squad, and it's going to be a tough one for the Rams. Now, I will say, I did get a piece of information earlier that I did not know, and you certainly probably didn't know this. Shout out to Pat O'Rourke from De La Salle Sports TV. We're talking right now to plan out this broadcast end of the week. Normally we collaborate. We do our own broadcast. De La Salle Sports TV has always been a friend of the program. So shout out to them. Shout out to Pat O'Rourke. Now, I was notified by Pat O'Rourke that last year, Jaden Galvan in the loss threw for 312 passing yards versus De La Salle. Now, he's the first QB to throw for 300 yards single handedly against De La Salle. Only two of them did it last year since 2019. So I'll say this all time, only 11 QBs have ever thrown for 300 passing yards against De La Salle. I don't have all
Wow.
the names, but I do have a few of these. Since 2019, DJ Uagalele was one of them. So
Huh.
shout out.
Uh-huh.
Jacob Riefmeyer. So these college QBs.
All right.
And then last year, I will say, Matter Day's QB in the state game did throw for
Of
355
course.
yards. But Jaden Galvan was 10 of 11 QBs all time to throw for
Wow.
over 300 passing yards against De La Salle in a single game.
What a
Um,
list to be on.
yeah, and I double checked this because I was curious. I was like, wow, wait, in the win, Samson Hunkin didn't throw for 300 yards. He threw for 250. Devin Rasmussen, who's currently
Mm-hmm.
at Edison, threw
Mm-hmm.
one completion for
Yep.
74 yards to Brooks Wheatley, which I
Yep.
remember now because that's
I
the
do.
famous picture of him on the sideline.
Yes.
So that was 320 passing yards total for the team, but not a single
Wow.
QB. So
That's
hey,
yeah.
it's probably been a couple other games like that, but just a little
Mm-hmm.
stat right there. So I'll say it. If Jaden Galvan can come into this game for the Rams healthy and can compete, this is going to be a great game. Now, there's been some question marks all week. I know some of the guys have been telling me outside of practice and inside the classroom that, hey, we might have a couple of our biggest guys missing this week skill wise. We're going to come out and compete and we're going to do our best. But I'll say this, if you don't have Jaden Galvan back there, it might turn ugly really quick. Galvan knows this Rams offense. He's been at the head of it this season. They've dropped 28 plus points in every single game. The only game they didn't drop more than 35 in was against Marin Catholic. And that was just really I wouldn't say tough battle for the Rams, more like a confusing one. They had to find what they wanted to do on offense, and they succeeded where they did. They just could never really find their footing to really take it to the offense like they wanted to. But overall, I still lean De La Salle on this one, unfortunately for my Ram fans at home. But um, you got to use your head. De La Salle
Yep.
entering as one of the top teams in the nation in California. They're the top team in Northern California. They've beaten all the other top teams. Last week, they had a good victory against Grant. Early
Mm-hmm.
in the year, they shut out Sarah, who
Yep.
is arguably a top three offense in the entire area of Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, end of the day, I think the Rams are going to battle, and it will be a 1-2 score game, but De La Salle is going to be the victor here.
Yeah, and especially for those positions that have question marks like that, this is where like when you are running through practice and stuff, like you're gonna really see kids or athletes really needing to step up, right? And this is where you get your notice, right? Against a top 25 team in the nation, right? Like this is where you get noticed. And
Well,
it's your time to show up.
let me ask you this, Drew, from your perspective, because I know you were a member of the St. Mary's baseball team, and your team was one of the ones to go up against De La Salle. And
Hmm.
even though I believe you guys split games with them, like when you were there, you guys were always in battles with them.
Hmm.
And when you face Granada in the NorCal title game, that's another team that often faces De La Salle. You guys had these conversations like, hey, this is one of the toughest teams. We got to come up and show out. You know, what's the type of atmosphere? I know it's different between a dugout and a locker room, but
For
what do you
sure.
feel like the type of atmosphere going into these types of game is as a player, just from your perspective?
Yeah, like everybody talks about like, oh, like we have to win this game, right? Like every game feels that way, but every you always hear like these games just have a different feel to them. When you know like, hey, this is probably the only time we're gonna see this team this year. We might see them in a month or two when we run into them in playoffs, right? But like these are the games that really set you apart from other teams and really prove to teams that you are a force to be reckoned with and that you are a really good team, right? Like St. Mary's might not necessarily have to win this game, but if they are competitive and they realistically keep this within two scores, like we got a lot of backlash last week, and we actually thank you guys for giving us all your backlash for St. Mary's moving down to the 5 spot after the loss to Oak Ridge, right? Like our response is you have to win. If you want to be on top, you need to win. You're not going to stay relatively at the top if you're not going to win games, right? Like these tough teams, you have to win. Yes, again, this is a top 25 team, and if seriously, if St. Mary's keeps this close, like they are a team to be reckoned with when it comes playoff time. You need to be scared of this team.
Without a doubt. And, we'll see how it goes for the Rams. If they're healthy, I think this is a game where they can battle in and maybe even shock some people towards the end, but it's all going to come down to that health. De La Salle's looking
Yep.
strong. Their offense is just chugging along, and it's going to be another green night,
Mm-hmm.
either for that dark green of De La Salle
Some
or for
dark green or
the
some Kelly
Kelly
green.
green for St. Mary's.
Yeah.
But hey,
And
that'll
another
be
thing,
fun.
yeah. Another thing about these big games is like, yes, your heavy hitters are gonna hit, right? Like Kenny Moore is going to score touchdowns. He's gonna get the ball, right? But it comes down to guys that don't normally show up, and it's those guys are the difference makers in these games.
Yeah, I know there's a couple players at St. Mary's who have been itching to get their hands on the ball. We got to have some conversations about this a little separately. I don't
Absolutely.
want to make this a complete
Nah,
St.
yeah,
Mary's thing, but we'll
absolutely.
talk about that later.
Yep. Three TCal teams will be on the bye this week, and Tracy, Lincoln, and Lodi, they all definitely deserve one right before they head into league. With that, a word from Coop. Every rep, every play, and every moment. Your hard work deserves to be remembered, and that's what Cooper Flicks Photography delivers. From intense game day action shots to cinematic highlight videos, Cooper captures the drive, the hustle, and the story behind every athlete. Whether you're chasing college recruitment, building your brand, or just want to showcase your journey, Cooper Flicks makes you look like a pro. Book your session today on Instagram at Cooper Flicks Photography and turn your moments into highlights. Of course, his link will be in the description down below, as well as everything else it normally is. And with that, we're gonna move into our game of the week. And
Hey,
of
Drew,
course,
just before you get into that, I want to ask you one more
absolutely,
question because you said the De La Salle victory. Is that your favorite moment too, like
yeah.
individually or just game overall?
Favorite moment, broadcasting wise, yes.
Okay. What about
Another one
game?
that,
Is that the same
an,
one?
same game for sure. Another
Okay.
moment that pops up was last year. Dax Hardcastle in
See, I'm
bottom of the
surprised you didn't name
seventh
that one. I thought you were
was
going to
gonna.
name that one.
Yeah, that one was a very special moment. I think, yeah, the game in general, I'll go De La Salle, but it was more of like the atmosphere of Dax Hardcastle's home run last year was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, St. Mary's taking another victory against Valley Christian back to back in that semifinal or quarterfinals
Yep,
round.
yeah, that game
Another
was
big win.
insane. So
See,
yeah,
I when you were asking me earlier, I was thinking of moments. I almost said the Roland Reyes home run from 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
but I didn't broadcast that game. That's the
See,
only
no, that yeah,
difference.
for me, I was saying that one,
Oh
but
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
because
that oh, what an amazing moment that was. As we will definitely get into all the basketball and baseball moments as farther down the year we go. When it hits those times, Mikey Montijo should be here throughout the year. We'll try and get him
hey,
on, talk a little
whenever
bit
you
more
need
ball
me.
with him. Any other schools that would like to be on, and we can talk about all your guys' school moments. Let us know, DM us, email us. We are available. With that, we will actually move into game of the week this time. And it's going to be a 4-0 Manteca on the road to Central Catholic, who's 2-3. We've been highlighting this game all year. I still think it's going to be a great game, even though Central Catholic's 2-3. They've won their last two, and they're at home for this one. It was a 31-14 win for Manteca last year, but I'm so excited to see these two offenses clash.
Yeah, without a doubt. You have Nico Juarez and the power rushing attack of Manteca on the other side. And hey, Owen Goalie, he's back there. He can definitely sling it too. He's not a stranger to throwing the ball this year. Manteca definitely trying to do a bit more passes this year than they have recently. But on the other hand, Chase Perino is that guy. Throughout the air, I mean, we always hear about the rushing attack of the Raiders, but if Chase Perino can get things going, get over the defense of the Buffaloes and get behind them, it's going to be a very, very high scoring affair and one that's going to be just so exciting to see. Manteca dropped 55 points against Lincoln, and I think the offense is going to keep rolling here. The Raiders, throughout the year, they haven't really impressed me too much on the defensive side. Really, it's the offense that has been, I would say, more impressive to me. Like when they faced St. Mary's Rams, Caden McHenry, even though in the loss, he had a ton of passes for touchdowns in the game. Chase Perino caught a bunch of them. So I think if they can keep their passing offense going, it's not the rush that's going to keep them in it. It's just Caden McHenry slinging it. And if they let him go back there and throw it, I think this is going to be a very, very exciting game. Personally, Drew, I lean a little bit more Manteca in this one. I think, throughout the season, we got to give it to them 4-0. They haven't dropped a game yet. They did have a close nail biter against Marin Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, though. Context, last year, Marin Catholic, Manteca, they faced each other. Marin Catholic got the win in a very, very tough game. I broadcasted that one for ABC Jam Productions, and I remember doing that game, and the whole time, Manteca, they were ahead. Marin Catholic kind of just jumped ahead right towards the fourth quarter. I didn't see this game this year, so I don't know how it went, but I can say this. That coaching staff is a very good one, and they're going to go off what they had last season against Central Catholic in the win 31-14 and just build off that. They have so many good players this year. Nico Juarez is looking much more improved, more than he already has been the past couple of seasons. And with this strength, I think they're trying to stamp that they are the top team in the Valley Oak League, just like they were last year, and they're going to do it again this year.
Yeah, and as much as I would love to disagree with you there, like I can't. Manteca has just been that team this year. Like they're 4-0 and they're coming off a bye week. So yeah, they might start out a little bit slow, but they're gonna be fresh.
Yeah, it's these type of games that you mark on the schedule ahead of time. Manteca and Central Catholic, those have, alongside Oakdale, we can't leave them out. They've been the teams in the Valley Oak League for the past 5 to 10 years. I mean, going beyond that, for the longest time, they've been the teams. As long as they've been in there, they've always been fighting. They've always been scratching, clawing their way for the top. And Manteca, they already see themselves as a top three seed in Division Two.
Hmm.
They're looking to secure even further, maybe even a top
Yep.
one seed. If you can get a nice win here against Central Catholic, a D1 program, who knows what's going to happen? St. Mary's this week, hey, they're ahead of them in the standings currently in Max Preps. If they lose to De La Salle, who knows what's going to happen with the standings
Hmm.
and those Max Prep rankings? And Manteca would love to have a home game later on in the year against the
Absolutely.
respective Rockland or a St. Mary's
Hmm.
Rams. So, hey, look at this one even further. This is huge for playoff rankings later down the line.
Yeah, I want to retract what I said. They had Lincoln last week. I meant 2 weeks ago, coming off that bye. So they're relatively fresh. And with that, this is going to end off our show with our top five power rankings. Honestly, not much is going to change. We're going to start off with just simple number five. St. Mary's is sticking to the five for us. They had a bye week. There's no reason to move them. at all. But like we said a little bit earlier, they could move up depending on how good of a game they do have against De La Salle.
And next up, we have number 4, not moving, Oakdale. Oakdale, hey, they're going to be a bye this week, so we don't know if they'll shift or not, but nice win this week. Their program's still rolling offensively and deserve to keep that spot for sure.
Yeah, and the last three teams are still all undefeated, so there's no reason that they shouldn't be our one, twos, and threes. There was a little bit of a change though, just based off of kind of strength of schedule and stuff like that. Chavez, they did have a very dominant win against Tokay, 55 to 27, but they are now in our three spot.
Yeah, Chavez, it was a very dominated win, but you said it. Schedule wise, a little bit weaker than Manteca's win. Manteca, they got the win against a D1 team in Lincoln. Very young school, but still, that's a win against a D1 squad, D2 punching up there. And I think that's a deserved jump for sure.
Yeah. And then, of course, rounding it out at number one is going to be, of course, EU with putting up 69 points. Once again, like they
Nice.
are just dominating everybody, like pure domination.
Yeah, EU deserves to have this spot. You said it offensively. They've been just putting on a show throughout the year. One of the best Friday night lights you can go out and see. And I'm sure this Friday night's going to be another good one. They're taking on Patterson now. I zagged. I said Patterson's going to take the victory on this one. We'll see how it goes this Friday night. I think if you're not going to be at our game of the week, Manteca, Central Catholic, EU, and Patterson is the one you want to be at. That's going to be
Hmm.
another good one. St. Mary's De La Salle at De La Salle. So, hey, if you want to make the trip to Concord, go out there. But EU and Patterson is another great show we're going to see here this Friday night. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. In about 3 weeks, it's going to be this Manteca EU game, and I would absolutely love to be there if I wasn't here in Arizona. I would absolutely go watch the fireworks happen. It's going to be amazing.
Drew, you have a car, don't you? You could drive, right?
That's
How how how
quite
how how far is that drive? Like,
12 hours, about 11 hours.
oh,
Just do it for the why
just
not?
get a partner.
That is true. And so with that, that wraps up the episode. Thank you so much again, Mr. Montijo, for being here on such short notice. We hope to have you back, and kind of having these discussions again. And with you guys, thank you all. I know this was a little bit of a longer episode, and it's because we just had a little bit more to talk about this week. Nothing
Yeah,
else.
sorry, I yap a lot, guys. My
Yeah,
bad.
that's just how we do it. We are trying to get you guys an actual interview relatively soon. We're trying to get it out as fast as possible. So just stick with us. And thank you again. This was Tapped in 209. My name is Drew Smith, and see ya.